Hey, what's good everyone? Brody here, and today I'm going to show you all how I produced my song Another Me, produced by me and Fish Narc featuring silvverbell. I'm going to go through, show how I make like a indie rock, alternative, post-punk kind of song in Logic Pro. This one's a bit of like a hybrid between like organic rock song and a little more like electronic. There's like elements of both. The drums are kind of a cool like hybrid kit that I've made, and I'll show you all how I put it all together. So yeah, firstly we'll start with how the song began. Fishnark sent me a loop. I'll play the loop and then I'll kind of show you what I did with it. So let's see here. So it started off with this loop, which the tempo of the song's 120 BPM. The loop was at 110, and then I just sped it up by like 10 BPM. So really cool. I love the like pitched down like baritone guitar, super dark, super like kind of like post-punk, kind of like The Cure, kind of a lot of like weird darker alternative kind of stuff that I've been very about. So I loved how it sounded. It was super inspiring, so I wound up building a whole song around that. I took that loop, I took the different layers, separated it, did a little bit of mixing, just like some EQ, some multiband compression stuff, and we have this layer. Did a little bit of chopping, arranging stuff. So yeah, we have the main layer, we have the lead. Super spacey, super airy, and then we have this kind of like ambiance thing. Like then I took, there's also, so to kind of accentuate this lead, I have in the hooks a like kind of distorted piano thing I made that is playing basically the same thing. Really subtle, really in the background, kind of just meant to like accentuate that melody. It's like a super compressed piano, kind of like a 80s, 90s pop kind of sound. Ignore the latency. There's a lot of plugins going on here. So it's the Originals Felt Piano by Spitfire. One of my favorite pianos. It's pretty cheap. It is super expressive. You can make it really soft or really punchy. It's got a lot of like pedal sounds and like wood sounds that I love in a piano sample. And I added some EQ, got a chorus. Okay, and we're back. So usually my Logic crashed on me there. Usually I separate the instrumental and like vocal sides of making a song into two different projects. It's for like, one, to make my computer run a little bit easier, and two, just to like separate those sides of my mind. But this one, I did it all in one session. So doing that on top of like streaming, talking about this is kind of pushing my computer to its limits. But yeah, we have the Aphex Vintage Exciter to brighten the piano a bit, throwing it through some Decapitator for some distortion, followed by the MC77 to kind of squash it, make it more compressed. Just another thing of it, like, I don't know, we're just making this kind of as like even as possible. I run it through one crystallizer for like an octave effect. And then I have another one going on for the more classic crystallizer, like reverb delay kind of thing. Then EQ. And yeah, that kind of like outlines the guitar thing that's happening and accentuates it more, makes it a little more bright and high energy in the hooks. Kind of glues in there well. It's like definitely a cool tone, but it doesn't stand out too much. It kind of just accentuates the rest. It's super I forget if I said it in the last one, but it's super like 80s, 90s compressed like dance pop piano. So I feel like it fits the aesthetic super well. And then to kind of add to all of that, that's pretty much like the tone of the whole song. And then I just wanted to build around that. So I did some of my own guitar layers as well. I started off with a panned hard left and right, double of the same thing, this part. So it's just like following the chord progression. It's basically just power chords with the open strings ringing out, add some more like harmonic content to it. I'm hitting it pretty hard with the 77 compressor again, just like leveling it out, and then running it through STL Tone Hub for my sounds. I'm running it through the Dan Corniff pack, and it's like a Fender Twin emulation happening. Running it through that, and then some delay and a whole lot of chorus as well. It's funny, the chorus was kind of one of the last things I did in mixing the song. Originally, it was just like a clean guitar tone, but I felt like everything else is so stylized that it almost stuck out by being like too normal. And putting the chorus on made it all fit in context a whole lot better. And it kind of tamed the high end a little bit more too. So yeah, we have that going on, and that's the main guitar tone. I have a guitar lead happening that is the same chain, but I'm also adding another chorus on top. So I have the original chorus and then Logic's chorus. I really like using the D mode on it because it kind of adds some like stereo width as well. It like, okay, so it has stereo width, and then also there's left to right panning. But I think that there's also, and talking about like the stereo field, there's front to back as well. And this, it widens it and then also takes out some mid range. So I feel like it takes the guitar part from here and brings it farther back. So I'll show you, I'll kind of A-B it so you can hear. Here's with it on, and I'll turn it off. So yeah, aside from just being wider, it just pushes it back. It makes it sit in the pocket a whole lot nicer in this track. I'll play it with everything. It makes it a lot more subtle, because initially it was sitting like right where the vocal would want to be, and then it kind of opens up that middle ground for the Vox. So yeah, we have that. We have the same exact tone hitting like a counter melody on the verses in the last hook. Then we have this ambience thing going on. So what I did for that part was I exported out this guitar part, like the higher guitar counter melody, and then I just stretched it really far, and it kind of created like a pad almost. I did that. I pitched it up an octave. I cut off some harsh frequencies and pushed it back a little bit more. Added some reverb onto it, and then that's the sound we have. And I think that ties in. It kind of, I don't know, I love droney sounds. I love an ambience that kind of puts, I feel like it puts all of the melodic elements like in a place, if that makes sense. Kind of sets the tone, sets the mood. That combined with the one that Fish already had in his loop. So yeah, we have all that going on. Then the next melodic thing I added was the bass. I'm using Trillion for this. I still need to get a bass guitar for my studio. That's been on my to-do list for forever. But for the time being, Spectrasonics Trillion works well. It's the same company that does Omnisphere, and it has some really realistic sounds. I'm using this bass. It's a 6-string Fender. It's like super subby. It has a nice top end to it. Kind of sounds like a like extreme version of like a Fender Jazz bass or something. and running it through a little bit of decapitator for distortion. Then we got this. And it does that same thing the whole song. I love it. It's such a repetitive part, but it has some nice flares to it that just like, I don't know, it's addicting. It's probably my favorite part of the song, honestly. This little turnaround here, I don't know, so fun. And yeah, that's it for the melodic side of the beat. Going from there, we get to the drums. And so when my like instinct right away when I was working on the song was to just make it entirely a rock song and just use like a drum kit for it. But I kind of wanted to push myself and do something a little bit different. I'd been working at the time a lot with like hybrid sounding drum kits where it had like electronic elements, real elements, and like messing with the way in which I combined those two parts. So for this one, I chose a lot of drum sounds that are more like hip hop rap based, but I tried to arrange them in a way and like with sample selection find a way to make them sound more organic. So a lot of these sounds are a little more like woody, a little more natural sounding, and it kind of sounds like it could be a drum kit even though it's not. So it starts off with 4 on the floor kick drum. It's my go-to kick from my drum kit. It's also called the back road kick in my newest drum kit. I wanted to include it twice just because I use it so much on all of my songs. But it's super punchy, a lot of high end. It's really natural sounding. I made this sample by I was going through some breakbeat, just like kind of crate digging on YouTube, going through like old 50s, 60s drum recordings, and I found a drum loop that I really liked. Took the kick from it, processed it a ton, like crazy EQ, compression, etc. And I love the sound of this. It just like fits in a rock song. It fits in a rap beat. Fits in like drum and bass. And that like even if it doesn't sound like a real kick drum, it's like a hyper realistic one. It still has the feeling of it, and I think that is a nice core to this. So we have that. We add in kind of the main motion is this shaker and tambourine loop, both in my kit as well. They're my shaker and tambourine that I just recorded like an 8th note pattern for them both. That way I don't have to like record the same thing every time I make a beat. I just have this and I can throw it in. But I do process it differently every beat. So like this one, here's the original sound. And then I add the smallest bit of bit crush on this shaker. And instead of sounding bit crushed, it just makes it sound like a bigger, like more low pitched kind of percussion instrument, which I like a lot. And it just like, depending on like the tonality of the beat, I can adjust that to make it fit in context. And it adds a little more color versus just like EQing it differently. Then I do the same with this tambourine. I'm adding a little altar boy, formatting it down, and then some chorus to go from this to this. Just making it a little more dark, a little more lo-fi. Then I add my organic snare that's in my kits as well. I like this a lot. It's super wide. It's super kind of rim shotty. It sounds woody. It sounds like a clap. I think it just like, I love layering it with snares because it just adds realness and makes things sound a little more live. Have another clap sample of mine. This one is a little more like 808, 909 kind of style. Just some EQ, and then I'm making it fully mono. It had some stereo-ness to it in the sample, and I wanted it right in the middle. So yeah, that's the core. Added another hat of mine. It's kind of like a clickier, lower pitched hat. Then like it's more of a rap percussion sound, but it's a bit woodier. So in this context, it goes from sounding like perk to like something of like a live drum kit, like a wood block or something. So yeah, real just like kind of creating like the sound palette for this is what made it go from like what would be like a house drum or like a house drum pattern and changes it, makes it sound like a rock song, which I think is cool. Got Taylor Morgan's White Noise Downfall from his kit. Got my cymbal rise and crash just for some added momentum. Same thing with some echo. Have this sound effect that I use a lot. It's like a pseudo beat tag for me in a way. I use it at the beginning of my beats a lot. It's just like a bell tree sound that I affect super heavily. I don't know. It's similar to the way I use like ambient stuff. I feel like it's like world building. It like sets the stage. I don't know. I like doing that kind of stuff. And yeah, that essentially is the full of the beat. So I have that all going on. I'm running it all into JST clip, which is just like a super nice soft clipper that I use. So without, it's just like real punchy, real warm. I feel like it adds a whole lot of attitude and glues everything together well. I do just a little bit of EQ afterwards to brighten it up a bit, and then a limiter just to make sure there's no peaks happening. And that's it for the beat side. Going to the vocals, I'll kind of go through my main vocal chain and then show my layering and what's going on. I have some other videos that talk about my vocal chain, and this one's not too different, but I'll go through it anyways. I'll start with the verse vocal to show you. So the main vocal for the verse and for the hook are pretty much the same. The only thing that changes is the amount that I'm sending it to like reverb and delay, and the amount that I'm tuning. So the verses, I have it hard tuned with auto tune access. And at the time I was using, Waves Tune, like for my graphing for my graphing tuning. And this one, I am doing like 0 retune speed, 79 note transition. So like everything's still perfectly in tune, but you don't get that like square wave kind of tuney sound. It feels a bit more natural. So yeah, here's the main vocal isolated.
Find my way down, nothing's the same now. Don't really like how everybody's seeing my face now. Covered in day, how tragic.
And so we have auto tune going into pretty aggressive de-essing, going into that purple 77 again, fast attack, fast release, 4:1 ratio. I'm doing like 3 to 5 dB reduction.
Nothing's the same now. Don't really like how everybody's seeing my face now. Covered in day, how tragic it is.
Going into an LA2A, the UAD version, with same amount of gain reduction, like 3 to 5 dB. Going into the AFX Vintage Exciter to add some top end after all that de-essing. Then I use the Joey Sturgis gain reduction. I realized I use a ton of Joey Sturgis plugins in this mix, but they just worked so well for this super tight polished sound. I'll show you, I'm hardly using any gain reduction on this plugin, but it just does such a, when I was talking about front to back panning, it just does that so well. It like grabs the like high end and especially like the 2K-ish like area of the vocals and just takes it and brings it real up front. I'll turn it off and then turn it back on and you'll hear what I mean.
Find my way down, nothing's the same now. Don't really like how everybody's seeing my face now.
So
find my way down, nothing's the same now. Don't really like how.
So it just takes it and pushes it right in your face, which I love. We have that. Afterwards, I have Decapitator doing a little bit of saturation, kind of like accentuating what gain reduction is doing. Go from there to micro shift. I love using the lead vocal clarity preset and turning the mix down a little bit. It like just slightly widens the vocal. It makes it sound like it's in a room a little bit more. It makes it sound a little bit chorusy, a little bit doubled. And I'll A/B it. I love the sound of my lead vocals.
Find my way down, nothing's the same now. Don't really like how everybody's seeing my face now.
It's subtle, but it really does open it up a lot. Kind of similar to that like D mode thing I showed you on the guitar lead earlier. So yeah, we go from that to another round of de-essing, some EQ. I was a little bit indecisive. Sometimes I'm simpler with my EQ. With this song, I was doing a lot of decision making on like the style of tone I wanted. So I have a lot of EQ just to kind of go back and forth with what I was thinking would be cool. Then I'm running it through Soothe 2. It's doing some de-essing and some like multi-band compression in the mids. Then bus-wise, we got a reverb. I'm using Little Plate as my reverb, but I'm feeding Crystallizer into it just to like kind of give it some more chorus and texture depth to it.
Everybody's seeing my face now.
You can kind of hear it in the background. It makes it a lot more like kind of wavy versus just like a straight, clean plate reverb. Then we got Echo Boy for our delay. Just a quarter note delay with a chorus on it, a bit of saturation. Ton of chorus and saturation. That's kind of like the vibe of this whole song. Then I'm doing a bus of Little Altar Boy octave up with super wide and I'm doing the same thing octave down. And I wanted a super like kind of hip hop sound on this vocal chain for the verses. So I have that like low octave and high octave kind of adding some depth and like electronicness to it.
Find my way down, nothing's the same now. Don't really like how.
And yeah, that's essentially it for my main vocal chain. That's it for the verse. For the hook, it's the same thing, just with less tuning.
Free falling, I'm sinking, and everybody's watching me.
Yeah, we go into vocal layers. We got a vocal left and right double. Those takes honestly are really bad, but I did that on purpose. I wanted to use throwaway takes for it. I feel like the more off the doubles are, the more doubly they sound. Like if you tune your doubles super tight and make them exactly the same as the lead, in some context that's cool, but I feel like it makes it sound less doubled. It just like makes the vocal sound louder. And I like the slight offness. I feel like that's what really thickens up the vocals. And when I use a vocal double, I want it to make the vocal thicker and have more texture. So yeah, I'm doing that. Second half of the verse, I'm doing the doubles, but I'm also doing some harmonies. So in context, you just get a ton of harmonic content. Then I have some ooh vocals going on underneath. These ones are formented. I'm using a LA3A to kind of glue them all together. And then I have a bunch of vocal layers and doing the oohs and the hook. Just be like super angelic, big. Nothing crazy on the processing. A little bit of auto-tune, purple audio, compressor again, de-essing, a little bit of CLA vocals. And yeah, I feel like okay, so I said chorus and saturation are like themes of this song. I think another theme is just like a bunch of stacks, like tons of guitar layers, bunch of atmosphere, tons of vocal layers, just making like a lot of harmonic content, a lot of ear candy. That way, like every time you listen, you can notice something new in it. It's kind of my goal. So yeah, I have that. Going to my hook layers, got the main hook.
Free falling, I'm sinking, everybody watching me, they think
Again with the bad vocal doubles. This one, throwaway take, but I threw a formant down on it, and it just kind of thickens up the vocal.
I put on a mask, it makes another me.
In context, it sounds really thick. Then I have pretty loud vocal doubles left and right.
Free falling, I'm sick, yeah, and everybody's watching me.
Super mid heavy, a lot of saturation. Same with a lot of these vocal harmonies, tons of saturation.
Sick, yeah, they think, yeah. Free falling, I'm sick, yeah. Watching me, they think, yeah. I put on a mask, yeah, it makes it.
Yeah, love how these sound. And then in context, this is the full. I'll just play the whole vocals soloed.
Free falling, I'm sick, yeah. Everybody's watching me, they think, yeah. I put on a mask, yeah.
Rip my computer. But yeah, that's the idea. Just tons of depth going on. We go to the Vox bus, and I got more EQ, kind of trimming off some high-end stuff. I have a CLA 3A doing some kind of gluing of all the vocals together.
I'm sick, yeah. Everybody's watching me, they think, yeah. I put on a mask, yeah.
Honestly, hitting it kind of hard. 5 to 7 dB of gain reduction, but it really does just kind of put it all together, bring it up front. I have a multiband compressor that's both de-essing and hitting some like proximity effect. So like if I get close to the mic or do something that would make the low end get bigger, it just kind of tames that. That way there's no weird buildup.
Free falling, I'm sick, yeah. Everybody's watching me, they think, yeah.
Yeah, and then the main thing, the main Vox bus after that, I'm also just doing a little more EQ and de-essing. Again, with the indecisive EQ in this song. Since this song is like such a pop song, I really wanted it to be as clean as possible. So I spent a lot of time trying to like iron it out as much as I could. Yeah, that's the pretty much all of it on the vocal side as well. Mastering chain was simple. Got some tape emulation going on. Got isotope ozone. Using the vintage tape here as well. A little bit of stereo imaging. Vintage limiter. Little EQ. A L3. And then I'm just monitoring like the loudness with this guy. And yeah, that's it. I'll play through a little bit of the hook after like talking through this all, just so you can like, after like dissecting this, listen again with fresh ears, I guess. Oh yeah, and then the last thing is Silverbell's vocals. He's got a great vocal chain. He mixed his own vocals himself, but I just went through and did a little bit of adding on top of it, just so it would fit in context with my vocals, like once I dragged it in my session. I'm sending it to the same sends that my vocals are going to. Then I'm just like de-essing it a bit, doing a little more saturation, EQing it to like shape it closer to mine a little more. Then using the CL1B. I love this compressor for vocals. Probably my favorite vocal compressor right now. Just super clean, super transparent, super upfront. And we go from this to and he likes more of like the telephony kind of vox, which is great on like a rap beat, but with this like more low mids heavy like rock song, I just needed to kind of beef it up a little bit. But it sounds great. Perfect addition to the song. I love the contrast of our vocals. Silverbell's one of my favorite artists, so having both them and Fish Narc on this song has been very sick, very surreal, very excited with how this turned out. And yeah, that's my song, Another Me. That's how I approach doing like a rock, alternative, indie rock, post-punk kind of song in Logic. That how I go about recording guitars, tracking drums for like a kind of hybrid song like this. Stoked that this song's out. Hope you all like it. After working on it for like almost a year, since it's been almost a year since I wrote it, Then I went through mixing it, figuring out features, figuring out the rest of this album, and it's so good to finally drop it. Can't wait to let you guys hear it in context with the rest of the album too. News on that I'll have as well. But yeah, if you have any questions about things that I should go more in detail in, any questions at all, hit me here, Instagram, Twitter, Discord, wherever. You know where to find me. And yeah, if you made it this far, really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening, and peace out.